Hey everybody, today I am back with another video, and in this video I'm going to be continuing my recap and review of High Score Girl on Netflix. So when we last left off, we were reviewing episodes 1 through 3, and now I'm going to be reviewing episodes 4 through 6. I hope you all enjoy, and without any further ado, let's get into this review. We start out with a rundown of events that have transpired in video games and like sociopolitics between the year 1992 and 1993. It kind of talks about all the little advancements within video games, plus the presidential run of Bill Clinton for some reason. So that happened. We have fast forwarded some time, and now Haruo is in his second year of junior high. I presume that this means he's in the 7th grade. I don't really know if the grade is different in Japan. I have no idea how their school system works. So Haruo is reintroduced to us in an arcade playing games with these two boys. We then are introduced to a blonde-haired girl. The girl's in the same general location as Haruo, and she wonders why Haruo is walking out of an arcade. She doesn't understand how a student would have time to be in an arcade. In the next scene, we learn that the blonde-haired girl's name is Hikida, and her father is installing game machines outside of their family store. Hikida tells her father the bad that comes with installing machines like this around their store, such as delinquency, but apparently because they're a liquor store, they don't have the ability to get kids to come buy stuff, so installing game machines is like the next best answer to opening up their revenue into other age groups. So when I first saw this scene, I just assumed that she wasn't that fond of video games, because prior to that she already had an issue with Haruo being in the arcade, and now she's criticizing her father as to why he would want to have video games outside of his store. To me, in this moment, it didn't seem like she was really fond of video games, but that kind of changes a little bit down the line. So in the next scene, it is now nighttime, and we're with Hikida again at her house. She's wondering about how her life seems very boring and repetitive, such as going to school, doing the same thing over and over again, and she's doing this while doing homework, essentially referencing how she's doing the same thing over and over again. She's just doing these repetitive math problems over and over again, and she thinks it must be nice to have fun and be free like Haruo, and how he doesn't really care about what people think, and he really loves his hobby of video games. So in the next day in class, a student tells on Haruo to the teacher that he was in the arcade. So the teacher denounces it and pretty much says that video games are bad and that no student should be caught there, and if they do, there will be punishments. As the teacher is chastising Haruo, Hikida wonders how Haruo can be so detached from things like school and education and be so attached to things like video games. So in the next scene, it's just Hikida and Haruo, and they're the only ones left after class. Hikida is supposed to be closing up the class and tidying up, and Haruo is still there playing his Game Boy. Hikida discusses with Haruo how he needs to write an apology letter to the teacher for going to the arcade, and Haruo says that he's never going to write that, and he leaves. So in the next scene, we have Hikida. She's waiting outside in the cold for Haruo, but it turns out that he was waiting for her as well. He was waiting for her outside of the store where him and Akira went when it was raining a couple episodes ago. Hikida and Haruo play Street Fighter, which she is surprisingly good at, but in the end she says that she'd rather watch him play instead. But while Hikida was playing, Haruo has a flashback of when him and Akira were playing games in that same store. So as they walk home, Hikida mentions that her family is installing video game machines outside of the store. Haruo says that if that's the case, he'll be there every single day over winter break. Hikida then wonders why she internally is so excited for Haruo to come to the store and play every single day. Hikida then has a dream where she and Haruo are in a video game. They're exploring this game world with talking characters, but then she finally wakes up. The next day in class, the students discuss a gift exchange, and apparently Haruo and Hikida are supposed to exchange gifts with one another for Christmas before winter break. So the day of the gift exchange party, Haruo and Hikida meet up outside of Hikida's family store so they can walk to the party together. Haruo decides that he's not going to go to the party because just as they're about to go, Hikida's dad comes along and installs a new Street Fighter game, and so he'd rather just stay and play that than to go to the party. So Hikida decides to stay with him as well and not not go to the party. After Haruo is finished playing the game, they decide to finally exchange their gifts. Hideka gives Haruo a pair of gloves because she notices how he's been playing in the cold since her family has installed this new game system outside, and she wanted him to have that so he could stay warm while playing. And we don't really get to see what Haruo gives her until the next scene, but when he gives her her gift, he asks her why she's so red in the face, and obviously I'm assuming it's because that she likes him, and the action of him giving her a gift made her happy. So in the next scene, she is in bed sick. She caught a cold apparently, and when her mother leaves the room, you can see a smile on her face, and the camera pans over and you see that the gift that Haruo got her was a game magazine, and she's visibly happy about that. Overall, I thought this episode was an interesting introduction to this new part of the story. I do wish that they maybe gave us a time jump to see how things happen, like how did Haruo and this girl become friends? How long has it been since Akira left and stuff like that. But overall, I felt like it was a decent episode. So on to the next episode. So we start off with Hideka and Haruo having a conversation in the middle of the street. Hideka takes a very big notice in Haruo wearing the gloves that she made him. Haruo tells Hideka that the only reason that he's on his way to the arcade across the street because they're having their annual New Year's sale. So apparently some time has jumped and now we're at the beginning of the new year. They both go inside the game shop and Haruo asks why Hideka decided to come into the game shop with him, and she said it's just because she wanted to. Honestly, I just think that Hideka just likes spending genuine time with Haruo, and on top of that, she's obviously attracted to him. She obviously has a crush on him, I should say. That's most likely the reason. So instead they decide to go into an arcade without purchasing anything. When they go into the arcade, they go and they play Mortal Kombat. Haruo starts and then Hideka takes a turn as well, with Haruo coaching her along the way. Hideka ends up winning and manages to pull a fatality, and Haruo is shocked and impressed. Haruo starts to feel this overdramatic rivalry brewing between him and Hideka. He mentions that it's been years since he's ever felt this way about someone. He says the last time he ever felt this way was when it was with Akira back in the arcade many years ago. We get to see the guy who double teamed Haruo in that arcade all that while ago, a couple years ago. You remember the guy who jumped Haruo with that girl when he tried to stick up for Akira, and Akira ended up beating both of them up. Haruo and that guy, they play each other in a fighting game. Of course the guy loses. He has a temper tantrum and he tries to fight Haruo again all these years later. Except this time Haruo can defend himself. But while he's doing that, Hideka does not like his behavior whatsoever. She kind of feels embarrassed by it. Hideka's walking home alone. While she's doing that, she mentions how disappointed she is in Haruo's behavior. She doesn't like his cockiness and his fighting. And she even goes as far as to say that she hates him. Then when she gets home, she starts to wonder to herself, maybe she caused him to behave that way today, because he ended up not actually getting anything from the New Year's sale. And the reason why he didn't get anything was because he wanted to spend more time with her. So the next morning, Hideka sees Haruo on the game machines outside of her house with an intense and somewhat angry look. She worries for him when the snowstorm outside starts to pick up. Hideka in this moment wishes that Haruo would invite her and call up to her to come and play games with him. She wishes that she could stop thinking about this quote-unquote weirdo, as she calls him. She finally gives in and goes outside with a hot cup of tea for Haruo. Hideka wants to actually talk and hang out with Haruo, but instead he says that he just wants to play games all day. So in retaliation, she cuts the power, thus stopping his gaming session. So we fast forward all the way to Valentine's Day. Oh my god, this anime has so many jumps in time, it's crazy. We fast forward to Valentine's Day. Haruo is absent. Apparently he's sick. Hideka wanted to give him chocolate for Valentine's Day, but she can't because he's not there. Hideka decides to go to Haruo's house in order to give him the chocolate. When she gets to his house, she sees his mother walking in, and his mother invites her into the house, almost like she did with Akira a couple of years back. The whole next scene seemed like it was Akira and Haruo remix. Like, she goes into the room, his mother makes him manga pancakes, and she stays and she plays video games with him, and he's sick. It's like a remix, but two different girls. I mean, Hikida gives him chocolate and a game magazine for Valentine's Day. He in return gives her nothing. Hikida mentions the organization that Haruo has with his games. He mentions how he always puts his games back into the box and back in order when he's done playing with them. They decide to play games, but Hikida decides to just sit and watch Haruo. While he's playing games, Haruo gets tired and decides to rest. When he wakes back up, he sees Hikida playing video games, and he imagines her as Akira, so he has a flashback of the moment that him and Akira were gaming that one time in his house. Haruo then has this deep and intense wonder of what Akira must be doing after all these years, how she's grown, changed, and evolved. He finally clarifies how much time has actually passed since Akira left, and it's been 2 years since she left. He said he hasn't wanted to play against Akira in a long time, but Hikida has once again sparked his interest with going face to face with Akira after all these years. On her way home, Hikida comes to the conclusion that Haruo is not interested in her and does not feel the same way that she feels about him. But she says she does not want to give up hope. So now the big reveal is here. We are now at the airport, and Akira has now come back to Japan. Her driver and family are waiting for her. Now, in my opinion, this episode wasn't all that, but I am glad Akira is back because she adds a little bit of flavor to the story. But I would want some things explained, like why exactly did Akira leave in the first place? What was her parents' situation? And now why is she back? I would want some of those things explained. Overall, I do think this was a decent episode. I don't think we've had a bad episode since I've started this anime. I don't think I've ever been like dissatisfied with this anime. But usually like shorter animes, like 12 episodes, they usually don't have filler anyways, so I doubt that I'm gonna feel like I'm lacking story in an episode anyways. So, you know, on to the next episode. So in the next episode, we jump to year 3 registration. Hikida is studying the bulletin board to see if she got paired with Haruo in classes, and of course she did. Fast forward an unknown amount of time, Haruo is playing a Game Boy in class. His friend mentions a new transfer student has arrived at school, but Haruo doesn't really care. Now obviously this person is Akira, like we know that it's her, because we just saw her at the end of last episode, so we kind of know that it's her. In the next scene, we have Hikida in a game shop, and she's going up and down the aisles, and she's wondering if she should buy a console or not, and if she does, what games should she buy. As she's going up and down the aisle, she runs into Haruo playing a kiddie children's-like game. Haruo says he's been waiting for his turn on a certain game machine that's only in this store. He finally gets annoyed with the wait and just decides to go to a bigger arcade with Hikida. So when they get to the big arcade, Haruo goes to play in a fighting game, and he gets 8 straight wins. Then he uses a super move to get a 9th win. One of the onlookers who watches Haruo play the game mentions that one time there was a girl who once got around a 20-win streak. Obviously this is a reference to Akira because as we know she got like a 23-win streak way back when. Hikida wonders in her mind how Haruo would feel if she were to get stronger at games. So a school authority figure walks in and Haruo and Hikida take notice to this. Hikida suggests that Haruo go do something else while the man is walking around the arcade to check for students, and that she should play in his place instead because she's wearing casual attire and therefore won't be noticed by the school authoritative figure. When Hikida switches with Haruo and Haruo goes to hide, the onlookers say that they are like the perfect team couple. Hikida actually wins, and then Hikida loses the fight against the unknown challenger, and then the challenger is revealed to be Akira. Akira tells Haruo about the match, and then he is excited to see the unknown character that the challenger used in the round. He runs outside and gets hit by Akira's driver. Haruo says that when he got hit that this felt very nostalgic to him. Now obviously it's because that he's gotten hit a couple of times before by Akira's driver. As we all know, the driver mentions to Akira that he saw Haruo outside the window. Akira's eyes shimmer. The next day the class is outside cleaning. Haruo and Hakida's classmates mention that Akira is now back at school, and Haruo tenses up. Haruo goes over in his head about Akira coming back to Japan and wonders how much she's changed since she left 2 years ago. He goes to look for her in all the places that they once visited a few years ago. She's in the game store on a 104 kill streak. He greets her by trying to play her in the fighting game, but for some reason she leaves. Akira goes to a different game and Haruo follows and sits beside her. She sends him messages through her gaming, very aggressive messages, such as attacking his character or making him lose intentionally when they should be working together to play this game. Haruo says says that he's been practicing all these years in order to play with her. And because of the way that she's treating him within the game and the way that she's acting towards him, he starts to cry. Shortly after that, Akira gets up and she leaves. She gets into the driver's car and then goes off. Haruo walks after her and then watches her leave into the distance, similar to how he watched her leave at the airport all those years ago. Hakita is in the background as she watches Haruo watch Akira leave. In the car with Akira, we hear past dialogue in her head of things that Haruo has said to her in the past, such as, whenever you need to do anything, whenever you want to hang out, you can always find me. And as these words hit our ears, she picks up the pink ring that he gave her, and she now has it on a necklace, and she just stares at it. Then the episode ends. In this episode, I'm glad that we finally got to see Haruo and Akira meet up again. It wasn't pleasant, but I'm glad that they're back together again. I didn't expect the episode to be this deep, to be honest. It's funny how like every third episode is always like the deepest, because the third one of the first review that I did, it was Akira leaving to go to Japan and that whole crying scene, and now it's her coming back and her having issues with Haruo. Honestly, I think the issue is that she maybe is jealous about how Haruo is hanging out with Hakita, and I think that's where the problem lies, and I think she may feel a little bit betrayed by him. In her mind, maybe he didn't wait for her and that he's moved on and found someone else. But you know, that's what I kind of think about it. Overall, I did like this episode a lot. I really did like this episode a lot. I do like when they get deeper into it, because this show comes off as a kid show at first, but I like how it gets a lot more emotionally invested compared to these other kid topic animes. Once again, thank you for watching. You can like, subscribe, comment. I'll catch you in the next one. Leo out.